So I'm going to cover next conditionals. And again, this kind of works in tandem with logical operators as well as math operators and comparison operators. You don't necessarily have to use all of them together, but there are many scenarios where you would use kind of like a mix of all of them or just a couple at a time and so forth. But conditional operators, or rather conditional statements, are very, very important in programming because they allow us to define certain pathways within our logic. So let's go ahead by creating a new method call here called conditional, we'll call it conditional statements. Cool. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to go down below all the way to the bottom. So you see this code is starting to stack up, and we're going to define static, void, and conditional statements. Now, in a conditional statement, what we generally mean by that is there are many different conditional keywords in the .NET programming languages. And in fact, a good bonus here is that many of these are also used in other programming languages. So once you learn it here, you pretty much know it for majority of the C programming language derivative languages out there. And so we're going to start off with the if statement or the if else statement. And basically what that is we're basically going to say if a condition is true, do an action, otherwise do something else. So the best way to show this is by an example. So I'm going to first off define a new integer variable called age, and I'm going to set that to 25. And then next, I'm going to define this if statement. And so we do that by just saying if, and within this parenthesis, we just specify the age variable. And then we can use something like a comparison operator to compare this age to another value. So for example, we could say something like if age is greater than 18, so actually, you know what? Let's go this way with it. Let's say if age is less than 18, then we want to say something. So let's say, for example, if this person is under the age of 18, we're going to say you are a minor, right? Now, usually when we have an if, we could just have this if block by itself. But even more commonly seen is when you normally have an if, you would have an else. But just to kind of demonstrate what this is, I'm going to just run this, and I want you guys to kind of guess what might happen here. So I'm just going to run this with just the if statement or the if block. And as I run this, you guys can see that nothing happened. Okay, and nothing happened because age is equal to 25, and 25 is not less than 18. But if I were to change this age to, let's just say 5 years old, and I run this again, now you'll see that you are a minor. So that basically evaluated to true. Once it got to this line, it said, okay, what's the current age? Your current age is 5, and 5 is less than 18, so you are a minor, gets outputted to the console. So I'm just going to set this back to 25, or yeah, 25. And let's move on. So that's if. But as I said before, more commonly with if, you would also see else. So now let's define an otherwise scenario. So if this is not true, then do something else. So let's say if the person is not a minor, we can just console.writeLine, you are an adult. Nice and simple. All right. So if I run this, we expect to see you're an adult, and we do. And the reason why, again, is because 25 is greater than 18. And because this statement evaluated to false, in this case, this age is less than 18, that's the reason why we're hitting this block down here and we're getting this output. Now, to make things a bit more complicated but powerful, there's something called the else if block as well. And the else if block allows us to chain multiple if statements together. So here's an example. In this case, let's say, for example, we want to specify if the person is between 18 and 65 years old. So in that case, let's just do something like this. First of all, I'm just going to come down here, and I'm going to just remove this output statement from here for now. And I'm just going to come up here to right here. Oops, why is my cursor not working here? Okay. So I'm just going to put my block here on line 140, and I'm going to say else if, and I'm going to define another else if here. And just open up that so we don't get confused. All right, so basically in this else if, I want to say if this user is between the age of 18 and 65, then they are an adult. So let's say age is greater than or equal to 18. And here's where we can use the logical operator of double and sign. So we're going to say double and sign, and we can say age is less than or equal to 65 years old. So if that's the case, if this is true, and this just pastes in what we had before, you are an adult. So basically your working age, you're between 18, starting at 18, so greater than or equal to 18, and less than or equal to 65. Otherwise, if that is false in this else block, we're now going to say console.writeLine, you are a senior citizen. All right. Nothing wrong with senior citizens, by the way, folks. All right, so now let's see what we get. So again, age is 25. So what do we expect this output to be? Let's run this. And we see still that you are an adult. And again, if I were to change this age to below 18, let's even say 17, and run this, we're going to see you're a minor. If I change this age to 18, right on the bound there, let's run this again. We see you are an adult. If I change this age to, let's say, 100, congratulations. We see here you are a senior citizen. So this is working. So again, with a chain of if and else statements, we can actually chain together different logical flows within an application. This is very powerful. And being that you learned it here, it's more than likely going to apply to most C derivative languages. So like languages like JavaScript and Java and even Python, even though it's using different keywords, you can still literally use the same concepts in all of these programming languages. Once you learn it once, you'll never forget it. That's the good thing about it. All right, so let's move on to something else here. And for this one, I'm just going to copy some code that I have written somewhere else because it's rather lengthy. So just bear with me for a second here. Let's just grab this. And basically what we're going to talk about right now are switch statements. So what a switch statement is similar to an else if statement, but a switch statement allows you kind of like in a tree-like structure to define different logical flows within one single block of code. So to show how that works, I'm just going to paste this code in here nicely and quickly here and kind of walk you guys through it because it's quite a bit. So what I did first up here is I defined a day variable and I set that to 3. So that kind of represents the day of the week, the third day of the week, if you will. Then I have here a string data type variable called day name. So the name of the day of the week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. So here I define a switch statement. And again, a switch statement, think of it almost like an else if, an if and else if statement. But it essentially is just one code block and it allows you to logically list out various conditions that exist and then run actions based on those conditions evaluating to true. So here we have this day variable that I specified that I'm passing in. And basically what this switch statement will do, it will check each case to see if day is equal to a specific value. So as you can see here in this code block, in case number 1, it's looking to see if day is equal to 1. Because we specified day is equal to 3, then we would expect that this case 3 would run and it would output Wednesday as the result. Now you may be asking yourself, what is this break keyword within each and every sort of branch? Well, the break specifies what must happen. Like basically we're exiting this branch of code if a condition is true. And the reason why we do that is we want to short circuit again, going back to that term, we want to short circuit execution of a certain branch if the condition has been evaluated to true. So in this case of case 3, because day is equal to 3, it's going to go to this code block and day name is going to get set to Wednesday. And then we're just going to break out of this entire switch statement and it's just going to exit. So let's try to run this and see if we get this output below. So if I run this, okay, I see an error message, type of namespace definition. Okay, so we're having an issue here, and I think it's because we have this extra bracket on line 176. So I'm just going to get rid of that and save and run it. Okay, and as you see here, we have today is Wednesday. And again, the reason why we get Wednesday is because day is equal to 3, and being that we're passing that day value into our switch statement as an argument is basically evaluating this case to true, and it's assigning the Wednesday string literal to day name and short-circuiting out of the execution. So that's basically what's happening. If I were to change this to 1, then we would expect a different output, and that would be Monday. So I did that, and now you see that today is Monday. So this is working. So now why would you use a switch statement instead of an if, an else block? Well, generally, if you're going to have a lot of different branches of logic within a single method, you might want to use a switch statement if applicable, because it's going to save you a lot of code lines, right? You'll write a lot less code to do the same thing. It's also a lot easier to read depending on exactly what you're writing. So I would just say you just need to use your best judgment whether an if, else if makes more sense, or whether it makes sense to do a switch statement. I personally prefer to use switch statements if I'm writing more than 3 branches of logic. So if, for example, if I have a condition that can have more than 3 possible logical routes, then I would use a switch statement in that case, because it would be a lot easier to read and a lot easier to change in the future. However, if I have like 3 or less, I generally go with an if, else if, only because there are some programming languages that don't have the switch case statement. So just keep that in mind. So that's pretty much how logical operators work.